Hello and welcome back to the Demis Hellen channel. It's that time again for another arpeggio video for August. If you want to gain early access to these videos, as always, you can consider being a Patreon supporter. You get access to the MIDI and various other exclusive content over there that you'll never see on my website or on this channel. So with that said, let's get started. So here we are with the arpeggio resources. Just before we get started, I'm going to show you today's sponsor, which is me. If you want to help support the channel, you can do via my website. You can check out this pack on screen now, the merchandise down below, and Patreon as well if you want to do that. This is uplifting lead number 1 from my Vital Uplifting Trance Collection series. So you can see that on the website, and that sounds like this. So that's today's sponsor, myself, and this is the chord sequence that we're going to be working with today. So we're working in D sharp minor, and we are working with a 1-4-6-5 chord structure, but this chord has been changed into a sustained 4 chord. So the original position is here, so I'll let you listen to it first. So it's a little bit too flat, so we're going for that sustained, that suspense of that chord. Sounds really nice, and it's going to work really well in the track. So the pattern that we're working with, that you just heard a little brief moment of, is this one here. And if we just highlight one bar, you can download this on Patreon if you're a supporter there. Otherwise, you can just copy this off screen. We've got a dotted 8th rhythm on the top. So if we just take away these notes a second, you can see on the offbeat in 16ths, leaving 2 note gaps between each one till it gets to the end of the bar, and then it restarts again. And then these notes at the bottom are just filling in all the gaps between these notes. Gives it a ton of energy, and is a very common sort of rhythm. So I'm going to copy those across, so we've got a whole section, and we're going to build our chords up using that pattern. So we've got the bass notes here, and then we're going to utilize the 3rd and 5th of each one, and obviously the 4th and 5th of this one. I had to think about that then for a second. So with those chords in mind, let's just have this open here so you can see these chords to the left. Let's make this a bit smaller. You can see the first chord is this G flat and B flat. So we've got the G flat already here, and then the B flat. And then I'm just going to do the same for each one. So we've got the B, or C flat, should we say, and E flat. And then, so 1, 2, and then this is our 3rd chord. This is where it's going to change. So I'm actually going to jump to the 5th on this one instead of the 3rd, because we're already on it on that previous chord. And I'm just going to put them there for now, like so, because I'm going to show you the difference in that end portion. So this is what it sounds like. So we've got a nice little progression up. We need to change the bass notes here, so I'm going to follow the bass over here. So we're going to go A flat, then we're going to go C flat and B flat, like that. So with this sort of progression, if you're musically minded, you'll already hear where it sort of needs to go at the end, or it sort of already tells its own story. So with this one, we are looking at the B in the bass. We've got, the C flat, then we've got the E flat and the G flat here. So we've gone straight to the G flat. We're actually going to go up and add a 6th note in. So this is the 5th. We're going to add a 6th. So we're breaking the rule. We're not going to go back down to that E flat there. What I'm going to do with this though is drop this back down to preempt the change in that final 2 bars. So it's only going to jump up for 2 notes. Because we want to do the half step. So you'll have heard me talk about half steps before, where we have notes in the scale, like these two here, that's a whole step because we're stepping over a note, whereas these ones we're not stepping over any notes, it's a half step. So they're right next to each other in the scale naturally. And that's going to give us a lovely sort of additional note into the suspended chord, which is part of it. It's the 5th note. But then we're going to bring that down and add that suspended 4th. So instead of it being the 3rd, we've kept the 4th in from that previous chord. So if you're musically minded, again, you might hear that that needed to move again. It already tells its own story because we've preempted it with this movement up here. So we haven't done it anywhere till this bit. So we're adding a little bit of detail into our arpeggio / melodic structure. So with that, you can see 2 notes. I'm going to move the last 3 notes to the next note in the scale. Let's have a listen. So with that, you can hear that it sounds right, but it sounds off at the same time. So in some circumstances, I'm not going to get into the theory of this because this video will just go on forever. You can utilize notes outside of the scale. So this is a D flat, and it clearly sounds like it needs a D sharp. So sharpening the note back to its original position, which would be here. And you can see that is out of scale. And it looks wrong because you're obviously being prompted to say it's out of scale, but you'll hear that it sounds right. And if it sounds right, just go with the flow. And you'll hear that done a lot in trance, especially these sort of melodies. And to be honest, that's the melody created right there. I wanted to keep it very simple for this episode, like I do with all of them, to be honest. But then you can add your own little shine onto stuff like that if you wanted to add little rolls up like this. So to be honest, that's the melody in its entirety. But what we can do is create a copy here. I'm going to zoom in and we can add some more detail into this so we can further develop the sound. So this is good. It's got tons of pace. Depending on the preset you're using, you can get a lot of energy out of this sort of sound. If we just listen to this filtering in. It maintains a lot of energy in there. It sounds really good, but we can add some more detail. I'm going to show you a little trick here. Select every second note in this particular pattern anyway, and then just transpose them up 1 octave so it's on the E flat above. And you can see it'll get closer to the melody notes here. And you start to get, let's just open that back up. You start to get a whole different feel to your structure. And I'm going to do the same for this one. So can you see what's happening there? I'm now going to copy this up to our A flat here. Just going to make sure my snapping is on. And then I'm going to do the same for these 2 here as well. So these are really simple changes that you can make, but it adds a little bit more character to your progressions. So it just brings some of the harmonics up closer to the melody instead of them being separated. So if you look at this one, there's quite a distance, not a lot happening. You could build a secondary melody into that gap so it flows in between these 2. But I usually find doing stuff like this makes a lot more sense. And it's easier to do it this way, like I've just shown you, taking some notes out of the bass and transposing them up to create this sort of rhythm rather than trying to play that rhythm on top. So you can do it from the get-go, but it's much easier just to transpose them up and you can hear the magic unfold. And with that said, that brings us to the end of this episode. That is the melody that I want to give you today. You can use that in your own productions. I don't own these chords. You can use that. That progression's absolutely fine. Make it your own. But you'll hear it in a lot of trance anyway. So it's not like it's something super, super unique, but it is super effective. And that, my friends, concludes this episode. If you did enjoy the video and you want to see more, you know exactly what to do. If you have any questions, you can ask down below. But with that said, thank you very much for watching, and I'll look forward to seeing you all in the next video. Take care.